She's queen now, she won, and within days of sitting on the throne she bled for, Rhaenyra Targaryen is standing in front of the most powerful families in the realm, serving them grilled rat like it's the finest dish in Westeros. And nobody in that room is laughing. That's where we pick up this week, and honestly, this might be the episode where House of the Dragon stops being a war story for a second and turns into something closer to a horror movie about power itself. What it costs, what it does to you, and what happens when the person holding it is barely holding herself together. Quick rewind so we're all on the same page. The last episode ended with Rhaenyra and Daemon flying into King's Landing and actually pulling it off. The Iron Throne is hers. But it wasn't a clean win, not even close. Her son Jacaerys is dead. Otto Hightower, Alicent's own father, is executed the moment the city changes hands. And the gold cloaks, the very soldiers meant to protect the crown, are the ones who flipped sides and handed her the win. That's the part people forget to sit with. She didn't storm the gates. She was let in by men who could just as easily let someone else in next. Nothing about this victory is stable. It's a throne built on people who could turn again just as fast as they turned the first time. So that's the setup. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable. We open on Rhaenyra in her first days as ruler, and she is not okay. She's haunted, visibly, physically haunted, moving through the red. Keep like someone who won a fight she's still bleeding from, and then she sees it. A rat, right at her feet, scurrying across the floor of the palace like it owns the place. Which doesn't sound like much until you remember. Aegon had every single rat catcher in the city executed after the blood and cheese killing, back when he was hunting for the men who murdered his son. There are no rat catchers left. Which means the rats are back. Which means the city itself is falling apart under her exactly the way it fell apart under him, and she's only been sitting in that chair for a matter of days. And her response to that? She doesn't hide it or ignore it. She doesn't quietly order the problem handled behind closed doors either. She has the rats caught, cooked, and served to her own nobles at a formal dinner. No explanation offered at the table. No apology. Just eat. That's not a queen making a statement about pest control. That's a woman who just watched her son die and has decided the only language left that people actually understand is fear. And the nobles sitting at that table know exactly what's happening. Nobody says a word. Nobody has to. Moments later, we cut to the war room, and this is where the show quietly drops its next big problem in our lap. Rhaenyra's side is looking around at the battlefield and realizing something uncomfortable. Otto's dead. Aemon's wounded and on the run somewhere, licking his wounds. Aegon has vanished entirely with Larys, off doing who knows what, which honestly might be the most unsettling detail of the whole episode. Because whatever those two are planning together, it's not going to be simple. Team Black is starting to run out of enemies to actually point a sword at, and that should feel like good news. It doesn't. Which is exactly when the show introduces someone new to fill that gap. Ormund Hightower, arriving with his own forces, ready to pick up the banner nobody else can carry anymore. And that's not a small thing. That's the show telling you this war isn't close to over. It's just changing hands, from a broken old guard to a fresh one that hasn't been bled dry yet. Before he can even process what he's walking into, Daemon is out meeting Ormund's army across an open field, and the tension in that scene isn't really about swords or dragons. It's about the fact that Team Black thinks they're secure because they hold the capital, and they are very much not secure. Rhaenyra looks anything but at ease sitting on that throne, and the show wants you to sit in that discomfort right along with her, scene after scene, until it starts to feel normal, which is somehow the scariest part. And that's not even the part that ruins everything. Let's talk about Daemon for a second, because he's not having an easy week either. He's the one who's supposed to be the ruthless one, the guy who does whatever it takes without blinking. And in this episode, he's handed the perfect opportunity to be exactly that. The chance to execute the High Maester, Orwyle, now that Aegon's fled the city and left him behind. By every rule this show has taught us, that's a done deal. Daemon doesn't hesitate on things like this. Except this time, he does. He spares him. And the moment that decision lands, Orwyle doesn't just say thank you and disappear. He offers something back. Something that feels less like gratitude and more like a trade. He hands Daemon a name, Jasper Wilde, the Lord of Laws, a man who was very nearly responsible for something horrifying happening to Alicent herself just before this. It's a small scene on paper, It's a huge one in terms of what it tells you about how these alliances actually get built now. Not through loyalty, but through leverage, one favor at a time. And that matters, because it tells you something about where this whole season is heading. Nobody's operating out of conviction anymore. Everybody's operating out of survival. Daemon sparing a life isn't mercy. Not really. It's a calculation about what that life might be worth to him later. And that's the same instinct running through every single power move in this episode. From the war room to the banquet hall to the battlefield outside the city. Because while all of this is happening, the Greens aren't just retreating and licking their wounds either. They're playing a longer game, and it's a smart one. This episode reveals a decoy, the Green side deliberately misdirecting Rhaenyra's forces, letting her burn time and resources, chasing the wrong target while the real pieces move somewhere else entirely. It's cold, it's patient, and it's the kind of move that tells you Alicent's side hasn't given up just because they lost the city. If anything, losing the city forced them to actually start thinking instead of just reacting. Which brings us to the moment that hits hardest in the whole episode. And it's not a dragon battle, and it's not a beheading. It's quieter than that and somehow worse. It's Rhaenyra, alone with the weight of the crown, realizing in real time that ruling and winning are not the same thing. She took the throne. She has the title. She has the gold cloak standing at her door and nobles bowing when she enters a room. And she is completely unraveling under all of it anyway, grieving a son haunted by rats and by the ghosts of the last king's failures, making decisions out of fear dressed up as authority because fear is the only tool she's got left that still works. This is the moment the show either earns you completely or loses you for good, because it's asking you to watch a woman you've spent 3 seasons rooting for start to crack in front of you. Crown and all, one quiet decision at a time. What's genuinely impressive about this hour is how little it relies on spectacle to get there. No massive dragon battle, no shocking death to headline the trailer. Just a queen, a rat, a dinner table full of silence, and a war that's quietly finding a new shape while everyone's still catching their breath from the last one. That's a harder thing to pull off than a battle sequence, and this episode pulls it off without breaking a sweat. And it's worth sitting with why that works so well here. This is a show that's given us dragon-on-dragon carnage, entire fleets burning at sea, and a beheading that opened one of the most brutal episodes of the series. So when it decides to slow all the way down and let a single rat on a dinner plate carry the weight of an entire episode, that's a deliberate choice, not a lack of ambition. It's betting that you care more about what's happening inside Rhaenyra's head than what's happening on a battlefield, and honestly, at this point in the story, that's the right bet to make. We already know these people can win battles. What we don't know yet is whether winning is something any of them can actually survive with their sense of self intact. There's also something quietly devastating about how isolated Rhaenyra is in every single one of these scenes. She's never alone in the literal sense. There's always a maester nearby, a guard at the door, or a noble waiting for an audience. And yet she might as well be standing in an empty room for how little any of them actually reach her. Daemon's out meeting armies, the council's arguing over maps, and she's the one person actually sitting with the fact that her son is dead and her city is rotting, and nobody around her seems built to help her carry that. That isolation is doing more work in this episode than any speech could. If you're the kind of person who needs to watch a queen get exactly what she fought for and immediately start losing her grip on it, that's basically the whole reason this channel exists. Subscribe if you want the next one, because episode 4 is shaping up to be even messier, and Ormund Hightower feels like he's just getting started. And if you've already seen this one, tell me in the comments. Was serving that rat dinner the smartest political move Rhaenyra's made all season, or the first real sign she's losing it? Because I've genuinely gone back and forth on that one more than I'd like to admit, and I don't think there's a clean answer either way.